Welcome to Dulles. We're a community of faith that embodies the love of Jesus for the good of our neighbor and renewal of our world. We're so glad you're listening.
Okay, so when I was young, when I was in high school, 19, 20 years old, entering kind of my adulthood, my struggle with God, my forming of faith was not really about his reality. I didn't really struggle with whether God was real or not. I really believed he was. I didn't struggle with his existence. I didn't question whether God loved the world. My problem with God was proximity. What seemed like distance with trying to figure out college, some big decisions I was making at that age, and stress that I was really beginning to feel that was setting in on me. And specifically, God's invisibility. Is this ever an issue with you in faith or kind of your journey to faith? Like, why? If God cares so much, if he loves so much, why is he so invisible? And this translated to me sort of this understanding, like, okay, I kind of get why people are stressed. I understand worry and worrying about the future. I mean, God can't even make himself visible. Is that something that you relate to, you understand in terms of trying to experience the reality of God, the good of God? We come to church, we sing about the greatness of God. He cares. He sees your future. He has a good future. But then it's like he seems distant. I'm told he's close. Okay, well, this was definitely my problem, my struggle. And it took me years to get it, to understand. And I'm hoping in the fall, and maybe even today, to kind of leap you ahead of a lot of years where I struggled, where you can kind of get there quicker than I did. Specifically in understanding that when we humans, when our species, our race, countered God's plan, when we essentially tried to seize control away from God, and we see this in the early pages of Scripture, God removed us from Eden. And that's a very explicit story. We understand what happened. This is the introduction of sin, when people behave or choose or even think counter to God's plan, his heart, him being the center of our future and our lives. That's sin, that's brokenness. We're choosing something that's incomplete and fractured. The consequence was removal from Eden, but we were actually choosing distance from paradise, God being the source of paradise. God being the source. You know, if you take the most extravagant picture today, I got to hike for 6 hours in Yosemite back a number of years ago, and I've been on beaches in California, and Amy and I did a 1 hour really slow crawl in our rental car across this part of Kauai to the western coast. It took forever to get there because of the condition of the road. And you open up on this spectacular beach, and there's no one there. It's like the western edge. You're facing Japan. And I mean, gorgeous, gorgeous moments that we've all had. And we could go around the room and we could name those places, all of us. Or we see those pictures of love, like just remarkable love, generosity from one person to another. We have glimpses. We have glimpses of paradise today, but we're in this very deeply fractured version of what God intended, right? We chose distance from paradise, God being the source of all of this beauty and the beauty that he has for interpersonal relationships and what you and I really were intended to be. God didn't choose distance. We did. And so God's rescue plan ever since, and this is what really started to click for me in my 20s. The more that I stuck with Scripture and I talked this out in community during the week and friends that would help me process this, the more I understood that God's rescue plan is his presence. just about a month ago, and I don't know if you know this, but I pray for 10 minutes with any of you who want to join me on Wednesday morning virtually at 6:30 a.m. It's sometimes 7, 8 minutes, 10 minutes. I kind of talk out an idea about our week and the busy week we're in, and then I just pray with whoever's online with me. And again, that's on our mobile app. And about a month and a half ago in April, we had a morning where we just kind of talked out this idea for a few minutes. And I've expanded it, and I think it's going to make its way into our fall series even more so. The idea that God's rescue plan is his presence, his coming close to us, our being close to him again, and actually seeing the fullness of what God really has in mind for us, what he really intends for your life. Being, not just seeing beautiful moments, but actually being, living in that beauty. That is all resolved in his closeness. You and me being close to him is really fixed in God coming close to us. And I think his invisibility always kind of messed with me. Like I just couldn't quite, I think he's there. You know, it's sort of like a friend. You ever had a family member? Maybe you've heard your mom, or maybe my wife has said this at times about our relationship, where somebody's in the room, they're there, but they're not really present. I've been told that at times in my life, and I'm sure you have experienced that, and you've been that person who's not really present. Or there's the person who lives close to you. They live in the same town. They're a friend, but you don't see them very much actually. And so it's kind of confusing, like, are they close to you? They physically are, but are they really a neighbor, you know? We live in this gray world. There's a lot of gray. There's a lot of ambiguity in our world. And so my question to start this here for the next few minutes is God close to you or is he not? I don't think we struggle with that question as much as we should. Is he or is he not? I think we live sort of in this vague place. Well, yeah, I mean, he is. He's there, but, you know, he doesn't always show up, or I feel like I struggle through this crisis, and I wish I saw God more. So sometimes he is, sometimes he's not. I think our answers kind of vary. The more that we struggle with this question and really get serious, like, is he close to me or not? God's not gray. He's not ambiguous. It's either God is there or God is absent. And if he's absent, it's because we have chosen distance. God's plan, which we're going to look at just a few examples here, God's plan is always closeness with us, moving closer. He's reestablishing what was supposed to be by moving close to us. And we see this ultimately in the arrival of Jesus. I mean, it's the ultimate of God's strategy, his rescue plan, and moving close to us. I want to look at a few examples. First, the example of Moses in Exodus 3. This is an extraordinary story where the Egyptians have enslaved the Israelites. God's people who recognize him as God have been taken as slaves, and it's just this awful oppression. Where is God? God, are you there? And they're crying out to God, and then God responds and says, I've heard the cry of my people. All right, this is Exodus 3. The Lord said, and he's talking to Moses here. This is the burning bush scene, that dramatic. You know, he did this phenomenal experience for Moses with the fire in the tree in the bush. And it was really to get his attention. This was a fire that didn't consume the tree, and that was unusual in the desert, in this part of the wilderness. The Lord says to Moses, once he has his attention, I've indeed seen the misery of my people in Egypt. I've heard them crying out because of their slave drivers, and I'm concerned about their suffering. So I have come down. I have come down. Now, this is who you and I sometimes would say is the invisible God. God telling Moses, I know you don't understand this drama, but I've used this tree, I'm using this fire in this moment to get your attention. You're used to wildfires in the wilderness. This one's different. You couldn't figure out, why is the tree not burning up? And so God will do what he needs to do to get your attention. Maybe it's through a person. Maybe it's through a work situation. He will continue to work to capture your attention. And once he has your attention, there will be some version of the message. I see what's going on. I'm not blind to it. I'm more aware of the crisis or the problem or the unanswered question, the work dilemma, the uncertainty about the future. I see it. I see it more than you realize. And I have come down in response. Moses, so I've come down to rescue my people from the hand of the Egyptians and to bring them up out of that land into a good. And now this is Eden language. God's rescue plan is to ultimately move us back to what was intended. That place where he is the center of creative beauty. He is the source of life. All is good and very good, as we see was the case in the beginning. He's using the promised land as this symbolic retasting of what God's ultimate plan is for you and me, this restoring plan. He's going to move humanity back to this place of rescue and paradise. So I've come down to rescue them from the Egyptians and lead them up, bring them up into that land, a good and spacious land, a land flowing with milk and honey, the home of the Canaanites, and he goes through the whole list. And now the cry of the Israelites, their crisis, their hardship, their hurt, their pain, they're questioning, God, where are you? Which you and I have done. It has reached me. It has not gone unnoticed, Moses. I've seen the way the Egyptians are oppressing them, so now go. Now this becomes the directive. We want God to just rescue and make everything right. We want him to snap his fingers and make life good and beautiful again. But he's often going to engage you in his rescue plan. Are you willing to be part of it? Are you a consumer? You just want God to fix it? Or are you willing to be a contributor? Like, hey, I'm going to be part of this plan. Because God always does his good work through people. And he wants to work greatly through you. God always does his great work through people. That's his choice. This has been his plan all along. We just think God can do his magic and wave his wand and do miracles. He chooses to use us as reflections of him, as his image. So he calls Moses. So now, Moses, go. I'm sending you to Pharaoh to bring my people, the Israelites, out of Egypt. You know, there is indifference. People struggle with indifference. People will choose indifference to God's plan. I don't really care about God's plan. I've got my own agenda. I have my own goals, whether that's pride or just wanting control. But I don't think indifference is the big struggle of humanity. I think it's more intimidation. When I sit at coffee and when I'm helping grapple, people grapple with their faith or that next step with God, I don't often hear indifference like I don't care. I hear intimidation. Like, Brad, how can God engage me? You're saying God is going to come close and reveal more of himself to me if I'm willing to be part of his plan? Not me. And this can be shame talking. This can be guilt. It can be, I don't know enough. Brad, I'm not talented enough. I don't work with people that well. And so Moses replies with his version of that. And that the reply continues. And we don't have time to look at the lengthier reply, but Moses starts saying, no, God, we want your rescue, but don't send me. But Moses said to God in verse 11, who am I that I should go to Pharaoh, the king of the great empire on planet Earth? You're sending me? Moses is hiding on the far side of the wilderness, having killed someone out of a moment of anger. He's hiding in guilt. He has some kind of speech impediment. We don't know exactly, but this becomes apparent as you read through Exodus. There's some kind of what Moses calls limitation in his own eyes. And so he's pushing back on God. Who am I that I should go to Pharaoh and bring the Israelites out of Egypt? This is what I think is the great struggle, the common struggle. It's not, I don't care about God, I'm indifferent to what he wants. It's the intimidation that God wants to use me. I love God's reply. Moses, I'll be with you. And I'm telling you, this is the antidote to the bombardment of anxiety and worry. The practice. We've become practitioners of worry. Our society is getting better and better at it. We've created our social media algorithms, and listen, I'm not anti-social media. I get some of my news from certain platforms like you do, and I'm very connected with some people around the country and even in different parts of the world. Our good friends from grad school who lived above us in Norway. I mean, that's primarily how we stay in touch with them. But it is so clear that we are being trained to worry or complain or point our finger or raise our voice with emotion. The antidote to everything we face and the uncertainty and the financial pressure and the questions about what looms at work and what next year will look like. The answer is God's close presence. Moses, this is daunting. Yes, this is Pharaoh we're talking about. But you're going to watch how everything plays out, and you are going to worship me on that beach on the Red Sea, Moses, because I will be with you. My presence is all you need. You know, I pray and write and plan messages on Sundays, and you know, every pastor wants to present well. You know, that's kind of running in the background always. You know, I want this to be communicated well. I want to do a good job in this. But you know what I care more about right now is, does this make sense? I'm really just wanting to speak to your heart for a minute here. Does this make sense that God can and wants to come into the challenge that you're facing, the fear of relationship, what that person has done to you, the hurt that you, the stress that you face? And the answer is his presence? That him being close to you is the answer? Does that connect? Does that resonate with you? This is a pattern that just continues on and on and on. So I've been in more virtual meetings this year. I mean, you know, that started really for all of us during COVID. And it's just, for me, it's just increased each year. And this year, I mean, I want to say every day, maybe not every day, but just multiple times a week I'm in virtual meetings. And it's an amazing technology. I mean, you can, you know, this goes without saying, you can just connect so quickly with people anywhere at any time. Now people, you know, we used to have off the grid problems. I mean, we have so much coverage now. You can be on some remote hike and be FaceTiming with your grandmother, you know. It's just wild. I love watching technology grow and advance. But I was walking through the airport. Some of us flew to Atlanta just a few weeks ago for our church network meetup there. And at some point on that trip, I saw this family hugging in the airport and wiping away those tears. Just those, you know, that certain tight squeeze that, you know, stands out to you like, oh, this isn't just a quick hug. This is one of those emotional goodbyes. And I felt it. I didn't know these people at all. I don't know anything about them. And I felt that moment like, wow, this is one of those, oh, I feel, you know, I'm not going to cry, but this is sad to see. You know, we've all seen that. We've all experienced that. Tell me this. Why those tears and why that sadness and the look on those people's faces when we have FaceTime? The very next day they could talk to each other live through a screen in real time. Can you explain that to me? Why the day before, the tears and the tight hugs and then just wiping those? Okay, what about proximity? Yes, but what about it? Yeah. Yeah, it feels more real when you're faced. Yeah. So I want to talk about this for a moment. Convenience. Technology gives us convenience, right? I mean, it's that's obvious. I'm in a call group with 6 other lead pastors all around the country. A couple in Wisconsin, South Carolina, just all over, and we meet once a month. And sometimes we jump online just because we're tackling some questions, or hey, have any of you faced this in your church? Can we talk for a few minutes? And we've become good friends. We've been in a call group for 8 years together. I mean, we know each other's spouses, and we know about all of our kids and some of our great challenges at work, and we're in each other's lives. And so we at least once a month see each other in this call, the third Thursday of every month. But then in Atlanta a few weeks ago, we had lunch together, and we were all there, and there was this smile and happiness to see each other in person, and it became apparent to all of us, this is so different. We see each other all the time, but we haven't seen each other since Hoboken, New Jersey, last October. We see each other all the time. We're always talking, but we haven't really seen each other since last fall. And it's this question of convenience and connection and collaboration. There's just something about being in person and everything. Facial expressions and tones of voices. And so in our meetup in Atlanta and the lunch together, the laughter was deeper. And we acknowledged, like, man, there's just nothing like actually being in person together. I think we see God as virtual. There's something about God. He can helicopter in. He can kind of look through a screen and see the situation. He gets it sort of, like he knows all things, but then poof, he's gone again. And then there's some moments we're praying and it just seems like, well, is he there? He was there. This month, I'm not so sure. And I think we have this concept that it's sort of this virtual relationship with God, when he actually has come in person, close to the plan, the strategy, Pharaoh, the crisis, the hurt, broken heart, the big question that needs to be answered. A recent study, I was reading this when I got fixated on this virtual idea, seeing God virtual. This study on virtual versus in person. And it was interesting that the distinct contrasts are that in-person meetings excel in collaboration, creative idea generation, and social bonding, while the virtual pros are really convenience. I mean, that's basically what it comes down to. It's convenient. But virtual meetings suffer from lower engagement and higher mental fatigue. There's something energizing about it being in person. And God's strategy is to relieve your anxieties, your worries, what we've trained ourselves to stress about with his close presence. It's okay. Watch. It's going to be okay because I've come close. I'm actually close to you. I'm not going to leave you. All right, here's another example. We could just turn a few books in the Old Testament to Joshua. This is where the people, they've been freed from slavery, and now the next generation is actually about to walk into the promised land. And it's this dramatic moment in Joshua 1. And God says in the middle of this context, he's telling Joshua, naturally there'd be a lot to worry about. There's a lot of giants in this promised land that you're going to face. There's some real evils and horrors that you're going to be approaching. I know that, Joshua. Have strength, be courageous, and here's why. No one's going to be able to stand against you, Joshua, all the days of your life. As I was with Moses, so I will be with you. There it is again. You counter the very real challenges and struggles and barriers and giants you're going to face with my close presence. I'm going to be with you. I will never leave you. I'm never going to forsake you. So all is going to be well. You're going to walk in success. Be strong and courageous because you will lead these people to inherit the land I swore to their ancestors to give them, leaving Egypt. This was God's promise. Have I not commanded you, be strong and courageous? Do not be afraid. Do not be discouraged. For the Lord your God will be with you. He's repeating this again. God just keeps repeating. I know. Joshua, you're going to default to the fear. You're going to default to the, wait a minute, we didn't expect this. I know that's coming. I'm going to remind you, and I'm going to say it again. I'm never leaving you. You will stand in praise and worship of my greatness, not because you figured it out or had a great strategy, but because my presence was close and I was with you. The Lord your God will be with you wherever you go. All right, last example I want to give this morning. The third one's in Psalm 27. David's facing an approaching enemy. This is a very real enemy. It's threatening the king of Israel, and it's threatening all of God's people. Everything looks in jeopardy. The Lord is my light and my salvation, David writes in this worship psalm. Whom shall I fear? The Lord is the stronghold of my life. Of whom shall I be afraid? When the wicked advanced against me to devour me, it is my enemies and my foes who will stumble and fall. Though an army besiege me, my heart will not fear. Though war break out against me, even then I will be confident. Why? Is David just trying to be super religious? He's trying to be positive because his army, his soldiers are listening, and he better be a good example to them? No, he's confident in this specific promise of God that he's with him. One thing I ask of the Lord, this only do I seek, that I may dwell in the house of the Lord. Now, the house of the Lord was the tabernacle that represented God's presence. And David's saying, I want, even when I'm out in the field or an army's attacking us, I want mind and heart to be dwelling in the house of God's presence all the days of my life, to gaze on the beauty of the Lord and to seek him in his temple. For in the day of trouble, he will keep me safe in his dwelling. And this just goes on. The rest of the psalm goes on to talk about the power of God's dwelling. When God dwells near you, all will be well. He sees the financial upending. He understands the broken relationship with the child. He knows deeply what the divorce feels like. He understands. If we allow him, we're the ones that create distance. God doesn't show up virtually, kind of see the scene and then disappear again. God's strategy, his constant, is moving closer to you and me. We're the ones that choose distance. We're the ones that choose to be remote from God. Even in the day of trouble, he's going to keep us safe in his dwelling, his close presence. Speaking of dwelling, the New Testament starts off with this, John chapter 1. The Word became flesh. Jesus is now coming. God is actually coming in the flesh now. He's actually going to shed his invisibility cloak, and he's going to reveal his nature, his heart, his plans. We're going to hear his voice himself. He made his dwelling among us. Matthew 28, go. Church, go into the world and be my light, be my image. I will be with you. Here's how you know you're going to be successful. It's not because you're going to be a fancy church or your music is just going to impress people so much or your pastor is going to be strikingly handsome. I'm sad to say that's not the case. God's strategy is you're going to be successful. You actually are. You're going to impact your community. Matthew 28, it's right here. Because I will be with you, he says to the disciples. I'll never leave you. I'll never forsake. This is the pattern constantly. Every page, every epic turn of God's story, it's about his approaching presence. And when we not put down social media, but when we step out of the algorithms today that we have learned in our face-to-face interactions, our virtual interactions, when we allow this to fill our minds and hearts, this reality, this truth, you start to see anxiety seeping out of you. You're just a little more excited about tomorrow. You're walking with confidence, not arrogance, but confidence. God's with me. I don't know how this is going to work out. I don't have an answer about this problem yet, but God is with me. He's never leaving me. He's never going to leave me. Okay, and I mean this question. Is this helpful? This isn't just a sermon that gets you through the rest of your week because we go to church and we're trying to be good church people, right? Please tell me that's not the case. You hear God's Spirit in this. He is wanting minute by minute closeness to you. Any distance that is apparent in your life with God is because you and I have chosen that distance, just like in the beginning. And so my heart that morning last month in our 6:30 a.m. prayer for just a few minutes was, God, guys, we've got to take this into the rest of this Wednesday today and the rest of this week. God is actually in the car with you, going to that meeting. The proposal, the end of school is approaching. He sees it all. He's actually close to us, and all will be well. All right, so here's two things I'm going to just call you to. I'm at the point in my notes that says call to action, putting into practice. They're in my notes every week. How do we put this into practice? All right, first of all, and this may seem, I don't know if it's going to seem cheesy to you, or like, really, Brad, am I really going to do that? In the transition points of your day, beginning with waking up, I'm calling us as a church, and I'm including myself in this. Can we practice this week? Could we try for the week ahead to not do anything digital for 5 minutes in each transition point? You know what usually happens when I'm transitioning to the next meeting, getting in my car? Somehow my phone connecting to CarPlay and hearing the most recent text messages is the first thing that happens in my transition point from meeting to meeting. Or I'm scrolling through my phone, I'm looking at my calendar for the next. Some of us do it literally within 30 seconds of waking up. We're still in bed. I mean, isn't this true? We've been training ourselves. What does the world think? What's happening? What happened overnight? News. What are my friends doing? Who's complaining about who? How's the political world blowing up even more today? This is what we're feeding ourselves with. So here's the put into practice. Could we this week, at every transition point, you may not catch them all, you might miss some, starting with the transition of waking up, could we leave the digital world aside for 5 minutes? And instead, replace in those 5 minutes what we would hear, good or bad, from the outside world, instead, something of God's truth about his strategy of his close presence. Psalm 27, the Lord is my light and my salvation. Whom should I be afraid of? What should I fear? Literally, when you in the meeting and you leave the school building and get in your car, could you for the next 5 minutes leave the outside world aside and do something? Have an index card with Joshua 1, Psalm 27, Psalm 20. Somebody read Psalm 20 to me this week. Amazing psalm. John chapter 1. God made himself physical and visible and made his dwelling among us. He's come that close. I'm telling you, it alters literally our brain chemistry. The neurons, the connected neurons in our brain begin to get retrained from anxiety, what should I worry about? What if, what about? To, I know. He's actually in the car with me. He'll be in that meeting with me. And the second challenge is, join us on Wednesday mornings for 10 minutes. It rarely goes over 10. It's usually 7 or 8 minutes. 6:30 a.m. The Zoom link is every week on our mobile app. Just in the middle of the week, it's just a great way to remember and level set and invite God's presence. God, you want to be close. I want you close. I'm going to allow you to be close. You good? Is this helpful? We're going to get into this more in the fall in the Don't Believe Everything You Think series. And I just feel passionate about it. We're just playing a religious game if we're not connected to God's presence, being the source of everything, life, in every way. God, this is our heart. Our heart is to not pretend the challenges aren't real, not to play church for an hour on Sunday morning. Our heart is to actually allow your presence into everything, every moment of life. Would you retrain us? Would you reform literally our brains, our minds, in the way we approach the day? Would you move us to the point where we become confident, we live confidently, that no matter what we face, God is standing right here with me. He's sitting right next to me. When I present in front of that group, He will be there with me. When I have to have that very difficult conversation, God, you will be so ever present. God, would you retrain us to not just believe this, but to live this way? May it come out of our mouths. May the confidence be heard and seen by those around us, that we can never be shaken, that your rescue plan is fully intact. It's fully at work, and you have come close to us. Wow, do we love you? Wow, are we so grateful that this is our God. I pray for your protection over every person in our church. God, would you lead our church forward through these summer months? And may we continue to be an ever-growing light in our communities and neighborhoods. Jesus, we pray.